Our sponsor today is AppWork. Best known for exceptional maintenance workflow management, AppWork offers so much more. Optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love the gamification of maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition for number one. From project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com today.
Welcome to The Maintenance Mindset, an audio-video podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Paul Rhodes, and over the more than 3 decades in the apartment industry, I've had roles that include being on-site, providing services as a vendor, creating and delivering multiple education programs, and active association work. This podcast is centered on the often overlooked role that our on-site maintenance workers play. You know, the men and women that respond in the middle of the night to the toilet call, or the after hours, it's really, really hot in my apartment request, or my favorite, my ring fell down the drain, get over here now. In other words, the often unsung heroes who are responsible for asset preservation and resident satisfaction. Working in multifamily maintenance provides interesting, sometimes amusing, and often fascinating stories and viewpoints. My encouragement to you is this: whatever you do it with a maintenance mindset.
So good.
Hey, Suzanne, it is so good to see you again. We don't get to talk anywhere near as often as we should.
I totally agree with you, Paul. And of course, I'm feeding off your energy as we speak. It's coming at me wild and crazy, which I knew it would. And I'm loving it on a Friday in the afternoon. There's nothing better than to sail off into the weekend and have a great conversation with a great friend. So yeah, I'm excited that we get to do this.
It's fascinating to me. You know, the song is we're all working for the weekend, or you know, I can't wait till, oh Lord, please don't let me start it and get it stuck in my head. Friday, all the whatever that song is, because I'm not going to try and sing it anymore. But it kind of irritates me how many people they kind of set up to get to Friday and then let it go because I made it here. No, I think that's kind of backwards.
I totally agree with you. And it's interesting. You know, Friday is like not the end, and it's not really the beginning.
No,
it's just something different.
Yes.
Than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I totally agree with you. I will say I do feel a little more tired on Friday than perhaps I do on Monday. But then if I have a really good Sunday, then my Monday is a little bit slower. So yeah, I think it has to do with mindset. And you and I have talked about that a lot.
Yes, I agree. I think you hit it on the nose completely of the whole mindset thing. I mean, okay, quick poll. And, you know, have you ever met or have you heard of Rick Ellis?
Oh yeah. I just interviewed him not too long ago.
Oh, awesome. How did I miss that? Or haven't I seen, is it, before I say anything, is it like out? Is it public?
Yeah, it's out. It's out.
Then how the heck did I miss it? For those of you who are watching this, go find that episode. Rick is amazing. He's great. And I met Rick years and years ago at a educators conference that NAA was putting on. And Rick was doing this poll of all the attendees at the conference of Monday, like or hate.
Yes.
And he gave a summary of, he kept track of, you know, this many people said yay Monday, this many people said bah Monday or bad Monday, whatever. I agree with him. I love Mondays. I think Mondays are great. I can wipe away whatever happened last week, and the weekend, well, it may have been wonderful and fantastic, but you know what? It's gone. I can't reproduce it again, but this is Monday. I get a whole new chance There's that proverb of mercies are new every morning. Well, Monday is the morning of the week, so why not have a good Monday?
Oh, I'm loving this. Well, you're gonna laugh because guess what Rick wore during our episode? No lie.
I love Monday
I love
shirt.
Monday t-shirt. Yeah.
Oh yes, that is awesome. He is honestly, he is an inspirational part. If not only is he brilliant and smart, and I love the way his brain works on stuff, but there have been a couple of Mondays driving to a job site or driving to an event or to go do something at a property. And yeah, you're in a car alone, kind of in that wonderful glass walled isolation booth that nobody else sees you in there. I mean, really, it's just you and the steering wheel and whatever song happens to be playing on the radio that you are driving along. And I can't tell you the number of times I've been driving along and that thought comes to me of Rick with that t-shirt of I love Mondays. And if he or if anybody else can like Mondays, why can't I?
Right. Right. And to that point, he obviously made a difference all those years ago that you would be thinking about this. It makes
Yeah.
me think about how we either intentionally or unintentionally influence people around us by virtue of our mindset and how we are, exuding how we're feeling or what's going on in our lives, how that just sort of reaches out and touches people, whether they realize it or not. He's very intentional. He's been very intentional. And just think about
Yes.
it's you times a million. That's an impact, right? Like that's huge that he could touch that many people. Wow. I bet you I wonder if he knows how many people he's touched in that way.
I don't know. That would be really cool. That would be a poll that would be an interesting one to
Yes.
take is
Yes.
Rick Ellis. Heard of him or not yet? Because
Yes.
if you haven't heard of him yet, you need to. I mean, this is, hey, Rick,
I know.
any extra business you find, well, just remember us little people.
Would you please? I mean, we didn't even mean to plug you like this, but now we mean to. And
That's
really
exactly right.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Yeah. So interesting, the conversation about mindset. I don't know about you, Paul, but as of late, people have been struggling. I think people are struggling even more. It's in pockets. I find people that are really happy, doing great. And then every week I'm talking to people that are looking for work. Can't figure out where their place is right now. They're afraid of AI or technology advancements. There's a lot of stuff that people are talking about. And, those are the people that are just saying it, right? There's probably a lot more people that are going through some things right now. So mindset can be really powerful. And it all starts with our own mindset and how that really influences others, I think.
It is. And you used a word there that I was actually thinking of is influences, to where I wonder how much of the pocket of discontent I get that you kind of alluded to, how much of that is real? I mean, not to minimize there is hard things going on. I mean, just in the news and the press of what is happening, the uncertainty that's happening in government circles with everything that's going on at the time of recording. The tariff thing is big news, and I don't even know to what extent, and I'm not plugged in enough to understand the cause and effect relationship, other than there's discontent, there's turmoil.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Then in the news of, football players that are happening, they can't figure out what team they're going to or not going to. And
there's a real dilemma right there.
There's a real dilemma. I mean, we're talking earth-shattering stuff, entertainment figures and various other public things And, there's that old press standby that says, if it bleeds, it leads. In other words, bad news carries farther than good news. And all of that gets bundled together to really ask the question for those of us who believe in setting a mindset and sticking to a mindset, how much of that challenging stuff that you're hearing, and I'm hearing it too, how much of that is influenced by media perception and news and if it bleeds, it leads mentality? And how much of it do you think is influenced by people like Rick and other people who have a positive outlook on life? How I don't know how to justify that or get that
Reconcile it.
in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I hear you. It's something that we were talking about when we were talking off camera. And, it's you too. Like, you're just not like Rick, but you have that way of just energizing a room. You can walk into a virtual room and I can feel my energy go up, and it's an amazing thing. Right. And it's intentional. We're conscious of it. We know what we're doing. And I think a lot of times, and I hate to say this, but people are walking around in a fog. They don't really understand, what they're doing in terms of their filter to be able to interpret that information in an unbiased way. Because you're absolutely right. You turn on the news, you're getting what you're getting, and you're getting one side of a story, or it might be multifaceted, but it is one side. And
Right.
yeah, how do you really reconcile that in your life and in your own mind? And I think that for people that are successful navigating negativity without
Right.
becoming negative, I think they have intention about it. They know how to handle things when they get into those situations and in those rooms, or in that vibe that's negative. And I don't know about you, but I mean, what do you do? What do you do when you're starting to feel like, oh boy, this is heavy and I want to turn this conversation around because it's going south? Do you ever find yourself in that pickle?
Oh yes, quite a bit. And this and regular listeners have heard, I've talked about it before, of it is a mindset of that's based on, I don't like being around upset people, sad people, or angry or irritated people. I don't like it. I acknowledge that occurs, and some of it is justified. But in the end, it's a realization that I don't enjoy being in those people's companies. And then the part that really sets the mindset for me is the realization that I have to be around me more than anybody else. My poor wife has to be around me, but you know what? She gets a break from that. My daughter, my family, my coworkers, all of those things, they're not around me as much as I am forced to be around me. And what that realization gave me is the fact that if one hand, I don't like being around people who are upset, and I'm around me more often than not, that stands to reason that if I'm upset, I need to fix it, because since other people have to be around me for a shorter period of time, that means that if I'm upset around other people, then that devalues the time that I have with other people, great people like yourself. So there are times that I go into my quiet place and have a discussion and say, Paul, what's the deal? What is the real issue here? I'm angry about something. I feel sad about something. I just got snippy with somebody that I have no right to be snippy with. am I really snipping at whatever it was that just happened? Or is there something else going on underneath? And if it is the something else that's going on underneath, can I fix it right now? No. Then if I can't fix it right now, why am I punishing other people? I will fix it when I can fix it. But now that I've identified what it is, I'm not going to take it out on those other people, because my time with those other people, the other people, I need to pay attention to what they have going on. So it's a little bit about being in the moment, but it's also that maintenance mindset that I want to maintain pleasantness around myself, just because from a very selfish standpoint, I want to be pleasant for me. I mean, I love you, Suzanne. It's wonderful to be around you, and I want to be pleasant for you too. But this is an isolated time. I need to be pleasant for me more often. So that is what tends to work for me, because we all deserve our emotions. We all have reactions. We all have things that we have to react to. And if we ignore them, that makes it even worse. So it's kind of a acknowledgement, deal with it, figure out what's really going on, and then at the appropriate time, come up with a solution. How do you deal with it? How do you do or work in those situations?
Yeah, and I will tell you, but first I have to tell you, are you like a stoic? Do you read about like Marcus Aurelius and all of those? Because that's what you sound like. I mean, really,
I,
truly, truly,
I'm
truly,
I'm
truly.
I'm laughing because I just downloaded on my latest, on the audiobook app of choice. I just downloaded a book because on my ebook store, they had one on sale of, what is it? Meditations,
Mhm.
confessions. What
Yeah,
is
all of the above.
all
Yeah,
of the,
there's the daily stoic, like you get
ah,
the daily dose of stoicism. But yeah,
yes, that's right. I think, no, it wasn't. I've got one on order that Mike Brewer talks about
yes, yes,
uh
hmm,
uh
yeah,
regular. So
hmm,
if that is Stoic philosophy, awesome. I don't have to try and
yes.
figure it out anymore. They've figured it out.
Oh yeah, imagine that. I know. I know. I was very shocked when I got introduced to it. I was like, oh man, where's this been? Oh yeah, on a bookshelf because I couldn't read it when I was younger, nor was I interested in it. But now I like it. I like these philosophies. Yeah, so I think for me, it's much of the same thing. You know, they say that you're pretty much hardwired with this mentality of how you look at the world by the time you're 11, 12, 13 years old. And
Wow.
it's a whole nother show to talk about what we're doing to our children regarding this. But I
Well,
do think, as adults, you can fix these things by really being intentional and having it, in your consciousness that this is something that you need to be cognizant of, and how it affects other people. But I over the years I have become very, I don't think people will label me as Pollyanna anymore. I'm a little tougher than that. I think in terms of being realistic and understanding outcomes. But I do have a very positive way of looking at life, and I do think that just from a, and this is an analytical way of putting it, although it makes me feel really good. The analytical part of this is if you are positive and you feel open to what's happening, you will do better. You will feel better. You will learn more. You will attract others that can come into your life and make a difference. It's just a whole different, and I said it earlier, vibe. But there's some real evidence about the signals and the electricity and the energy that we put out when we are in our own funk. And I just can't be there for very long. It's debilitating for me to think inward to that point where I can't see the possibility. And I know people get there. I talk to them all the time, but I can't let myself get there, and I won't. There's got to be something positive, even if it's just one small win for the day. I don't have to go out and, you know, conquer the Romans, Marcus Aurelius and all this other good stuff. I need to do that. I just need to be able to do one positive thing during the day, and I'm going to be all right. The positive mindset and believing that, I haven't done something yet, I can't do something, and just putting that whole word "yet" at the end of it is so powerful. Yeah. I don't know how to do that yet. That's such a powerful, it's not mine either. I'm sure you've heard of it too. It's out there. My
Yeah.
daughter's got it on her wall. It's just a really powerful way of looking at the world. And I think those little things really matter. And the way we show up really matters.
One of the big changes in my life, I noticed I was working a property at a property as a maintenance technician. So it was even before I was in a leadership position. And I went through, I injured myself a couple of times. One, I cut my hand really bad on a piece of tile, still have the scar, stitches and everything. And I just got that out, had those stitches taken out, and then turned right around on the job and gashed the end of my finger. So stitches again, doing it. And I'm sitting in the doc in a box, the little outpatient, whatever it was, getting my finger stitched up. And I've got to thinking myself of, this always happens. Why? How can I go from having a bandage on this hand to having another bandage on this hand? Why is this? And I remember distinctly sitting in there, and a nurse comes in, and after they stitched me up and my finger's still numb, and the nurse comes in and she says, "How you doing?" And I stopped and I said, "I'm doing good." And she did some things and left. And I'm like, what the heck does good mean? Good in relation to what? And somehow that thought stuck in my brain. And the next day or the next couple of days, it came across my thought process again of, how am I doing? And instead of answering good, I just changed it to well. I'm doing well. And there was something in my brain that, taking it away from the answer of no thinking, just the automatic, like, habitual response of I'm doing good. Well, that requires no cognitive ability, but I have to think about using that word well.
Yes. I
In
like that.
every context of it, even though I had this club on the end of my finger because it was sewn back together, and yet I'm doing well. And I began doing that, or having that, to where that still carries on today. My salutations on emails is "be well." And it's that kind of a internal trademark, just because it's different. And that mental change, the one little thing, I had a conversation here a couple of months ago at a conference, and we were talking about, during the conversation, we were talking about performing on-site inspections, and whether it's a make-ready inspection, curb appeal, roofing, landscaping, whatever reason. We were having a group conversation, several people sitting around, and somebody asked me, "Why are you so negative? All you're doing is pointing, excuse me, pointing out things that are wrong." And I stopped and I said, what is behind asking this? Because we're having a constructive conversation about, setting up a checklist or best ways to perform an inspection. And I had never, ever thought about it being a negative thing. But the more we carried on, continued the conversation, she's right. when we as property managers and property owners, when we go on site, we look for the deficient, the broken, the not up to standard, the less than whatever standard we meet. And yes, if that's where the story ends, then that is a negative based exercise. And where on recollection, where to me that ends up leading, and I don't know, this will probably end up as a podcast episode somewhere along the lines when I forget later us having this conversation. But I firmly believe, just like what you were saying of that positive spin on it. From a maintenance standpoint, our job of maintenance is to keep something at a state of expectation. It will never, ever be perfect. I mean, no building, no apartment, no property, no community, no structure was ever perfect to begin with.
No.
And yet, the role of a maintenance professional is to identify deficiencies and then bring those deficiencies back up to an acceptable level. So that means we have to look negatively, but what lens are we using to look negatively? Are we looking at things negatively to fix them? Or are we looking at things negatively to use them as an excuse?
That's a big one. That's a really big one. Yeah, it reminds me of being on site and having, the big boss come out. And I know this is an age-old conversation, but you just brought up a memory, and, everybody's scurrying. I remember one company that I worked for, and the owner had said to me at the very beginning, which was great because it set the whole way that I viewed the culture and interpreted things from that point forward. He said, "Please do not make the team get ready for any of our visits, because I'll know. And I'll know because everything's perfect and everybody is on point.
Yeah.
Just act like I'm going to be here every day and it'll be great." And I thought, wow, I've never had anyone, say that to me before. And I think it's become more common now. This was way back in the day when, it was pretty scary as I walked around in my pantyhose and my big, heels and showing apartments. Whole different world today. But yeah, it was really meaningful. And I think you're right. And I don't think we're very conscious of this sometimes, even myself, when I'm working with teams on site, because I'm a problem solver. I like to look for the stuff that's off, because that way I can get in and help and fix it. But you're right. If you don't balance that in some way with the bigger picture of what they're doing is really making an impact, and can they see that? And do they know that? Yeah, it can be a negative experience for sure. It can really be a negative experience for sure. I don't know. I think the site teams have a lot of pressure on them, and I'm sure you talk about this all the time. And one of the things that I've noticed with successful teams is that they're involved in the conversation no matter what department it is. They are at the table. They have something to say. And even some of the negative people, if they're listened to, don't really sound negative. They just sound like they're saying what they need to say. And maybe it's not the way that everybody else wants to hear it. But it brings me back to what we were talking about before we went on the air, and that was about getting to the real issue. I think sometimes getting to the real issue can be looked at like a negative, and it's not.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Right? And I think people are attempting to get to the real issue sometimes, and it may come across that way, but you might be getting into the real thing. And the sooner you get to the root of something, the sooner you can fix it.
This past year, I read this book, and I've been quoting it, and I've talked about it a lot The Advice Trap by Michael Bungay Stanier. And in it, it talks about the importance of not telling people what their problem is. And he gives a framework, an outline to ask questions. And
Yes.
the one that really is sticking in my mind right now is, what's the real issue? Oh, and pardon me, and to correct it, he says, what's the real issue here for you? And making it personal. And then in the book, he stresses the fact that if you are the coach, because it's all on coaching, if you are the coach, if you're the person asking that question, do not accept the first answer as, to your point, the real thing, for various reasons. And I remember reading that and stopping and finding, I was reading it in an airport, and I had to go digging through my backpack to find a pen, because I know I want to find this later and come back to this, because there's something that is, this is important. This is a big thing for me right now, but I know for a fact I don't know how big or important it is. So I want to come back and find this. I want to revisit this. And I have revisited that a lot, because and I don't know if it's like this for you in your practice and with your business, but I know in when I'm educating, when I'm teaching something, I will just start talking, and at some point it changes from me uh, uh, answering the question, whether a student has asked it or the class has asked a question, and then turns over into, Paul is no longer training. Paul is now at this point just proving he's the smartest one in the room and just knows some piece of information that you no longer know. And that question for me stops me short of what is the real question here for them. And am I meeting it, or am I just continuing to talk because I like to talk? Paul likes to talk.
Well, let's unpack that, shall we, Paul? I actually had this very conversation this morning. I was talking to a person who's absolutely fantastic. And I was reflecting on why I was giving this person this advice, because, well, I've done it and now I have experience in it. And it is about the difference between managing and leading. And in coaching, there's a very distinct line that's drawn between advising and coaching. Coaching is getting someone to realize that they've known the answer all along, and you help them to find it by asking questions. Advisors come in and they tell you, they give you advice, right? And so many times we have to do both. One of my coaches said, you do what's necessary, you do what's called for. So if you are giving advice because that's exactly what that person needs, and they've told you, look, just please tell me the right thing to do, I'm going to tell them what I think. But most of the time, people want to talk about it and they want you to listen. And they'll figure out the path if you're asking the right questions. And maybe not in the first time. And maybe they might pick it up from there and start asking themselves the right questions. But to your point, there's a very distinct difference between leadership, when you start turning it around and stop giving the answers out, and you say, well, what would you do? What do you think? Let's brainstorm this. And that really changes the conversation. We also had the conversation about how it stops bottlenecks and it empowers the team. They get confidence, they get the reps, And now all of a sudden, you're not the go-to person for every single thing because they're using their own brains and common sense and knowledge and experience because guess what? They have a lot of it and they're getting confidence. And then as a leader, you're just helping them and guiding them and making sure that they know it's okay to make mistakes. And that's a different role than managing. And they're both extremely necessary because managing needs to happen too. Like push comes to shove, this has got to get done, right? So this has got to get done. The expectation is this. And here is the answer because you might have someone on the team that doesn't know the answer.
Right.
And there's no time. There's no time to figure, to figure it out. But I love that you brought that up because it's been on my mind too. It's hard to distinguish like what you should do sometimes depending on where someone's at. But I will tell you, being conscious of it has really helped me to be able to be the right thing for this person and show up the right way so that they can grow. Because that's really ultimately why I'm doing what I'm doing. It sounds like you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and
bit.
along the line, it's fun too. So yes,
fun.
oh yeah, and it pays the bills. But
that too, yeah,
that too. I'm so glad you brought up the leadership and the management dichotomy because I think it's more complicated than that. Meaning there's more than two things that are needed in any situation, but really. Especially on, I'm going to say social media with the caveat, I'm not on social media with the exception of LinkedIn. So when I say social media on LinkedIn, there's a lot of memes or posts that essentially go to management bad, leader good.
Yeah.
I disagree with it. It's not a zero sum game. It's not a one or the other. I think they're valued. They're different things. It's not better or worse. They're different things. And there was one, I attended a session at the Texas Apartment Association last year that talked about that. And they kept hammering on this point that you lead people, you manage processes. Now, managing processes requires people, and the people you're leading do processes. So I think, and I'm just now putting this together of a coach can help people to identify the processes that they need to do. And sometimes that coach needs to tell you the end so you work towards that. In other words, you give them advice. Other times, instead of telling them the end, you maybe point a flashlight in the next step of the direction towards the end.
Yeah.
So all of that just goes to say that, it's okay that we don't always have the answer as long as we remain. My favorite quote of all times is still Einstein's. We don't lose a holy curiosity.
So true.
Because the minute I believe the minute I stop asking questions, that's the minute I start to get complacent, lazy, and I look for excuses.
Don't know thyself and preach it. I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's really good stuff. And, I'm just thinking, I couldn't have that conversation 20 years ago. I wasn't there. I just couldn't have this conversation. In fact, people that were having that conversation with me, I was like, yeah, you don't even know what you're talking about. And now, a decade and a half later, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is the wisdom. And I am so glad that you're out there and you're sharing all of this all the time, Paul. Like it's such a testimony to who you are as a person. And I know you've had a tremendous effect on me. It's just been a lot of fun getting to know you. And, I wish we had a weekly one-to-one, because I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to get my juice on Friday afternoon. It's going to be great. Head on to the weekend. I'm going to be wonderful. No, it's just, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I love it. I don't know why I went off and said that, but I just want you to know how much you're appreciated.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I will turn it around. What book has affected you this year? If since I brought it up, the one on me, is there one that has caught you? And it could even be Marcus Aurelius that I haven't read or know yet. But what is it that has affected you, and why?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'm going to go grab it. Since my camera seems to follow me, I don't know why. But
Follow
here
you?
it
Oh,
is.
that's really cool.
I've got two of them. I'll talk about this one because it's really good. The Gap and the Gain.
Ooh,
This one.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is by Dan Sullivan, and he's a strategic coach. He's really pretty cool. And then Dr. Benjamin Hardy, which you can get his free newsletter. It's amazing. But this is really about people, and it actually goes right along with what we're talking about. It is about people that are constantly in the gap of their life, and they haven't recognized the gain. And so they're always living in the gap, which means they never really succeed because they can't see the gain that has occurred. And it talks about how you can structure your mindset and the way that you think and the way that you set goals and the way that you go towards achieving them in a way that has you recognizing the gain all along the way. And then outwardly looking at the rest of the world that way. And so, catching yourself and saying, where am I? Am I in the gap right now? Am I living in the gap of what's occurring because I haven't gotten here yet? I'm here and I haven't gotten here. And I got this big gap in between. Is that where is this where I'm staying and I'm ruminating, and is that where I'm stuck? Or am I here more in the present and I've gained something, then I look back and I've gained this much. It talks, I think, a lot about something we're very familiar with, which is like coveting what you don't have, or constantly looking at the people that you think are making all this money, and maybe that's what you want. Or maybe all those people that are having vacations or seem to have all this time with their family, and you're like, wow, I don't have that. And you're really in the gap of that, instead of, recognizing that you got to spend time with your family this weekend and you made one effort more than maybe you did in the past to spend 30 minutes with one of your kids that you haven't been doing, or whatever. And that was a gain. Everybody gained. Nobody went backwards. And that's how you change the world.
Yeah.
One little thing at a time. It's not going from here to here overnight. That just doesn't happen.
That is
once in a great while, but it's very rare.
that is so then the concept of living in the gap is striving to make the gap smaller between where you're at and where you identify you want to be. Is that a way of saying it?
Yeah, it's a mentality of looking at the gains in your life, and instead of living in the gap of what's off and what's wrong. And it's very powerful, especially if you're a high achiever. People that are high achievers tend to set the bar very high for themselves, and they get really disappointed when they don't reach the goal, and they can get stuck for years and years. And so how unhappy is that, right? Like,
Yeah, that's not a good place to be.
it's not a good place to be. And so this really just talks about how to not have that happen to you. I mean, it's a lot more to that, but it's just about having fun and enjoying the success, and having some happiness. That it's not, just, and this will be a familiar statement. It's not just the destiny, it's the journey. A lot of that falls into that same thing, but it's a visual for me that, especially since I like mountains and all that great stuff. Like, I don't want to be in the gap. I really don't want to be in the gap. So yeah, it's a good book. It's had an effect on me for sure.
That's an interesting concept. I remember years ago, a speaker brought up the fact that, you don't have a farm on the mountaintop.
Oh, so good.
You
Yeah.
have a farm.
Right.
The farms grow in the valley. All the growth happens in the valley, and yet we all want to only get to the mountaintop, which, following that analogy, that's really it, to where, yes, we all want to go there, but the fact that you're in a valley, metaphorically,
Mm-hmm.
simile, whatever it is, the
Definitely.
fact that you're there, it's okay. That's where some really cool stuff happens.
Totally. Totally. In life, you've seen the squiggly line. It's
Yeah.
not like this. It's like this.
Right. Yeah, it's all over the place. Yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and the host and the guy he was interviewing asked, what is your critical, or what is your outlook on life? They were talking about an aspect of happiness and becoming mature. And the guy, he says that happiness is the curve over a life based on some happiness spectrum. And I probably am botching this explanation. I should know all these numbers.
I'm listening.
But it was the line chart on the graph that was given was a smile. So it was over the course of life, you start off as a kid, and it's broken down in 10-year increments, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, all the way through a life. And that you start out really, really happy as an infant. And then it's a smile curve to where people on this chart hit their lowest levels of happiness between 45 to 55 and 60 years old, which is where I am. So, and yet I don't feel that. But what he was talking about was the realization, and for this mindset that apparently we're continuing to talk about, in his case, it kind of relates to the gap part, but he looked at it, he was a financial guy, to where you look at it as, what was the term? Negative revenue. In other words, if you are giving more than you're making, you're winning. And he talked about it in terms that,
Cool.
when you're a teenager and in your early 20s, it's all me, me, me. We do things for the paycheck. We do things for the relationship and the benefits that go with that. We do the things for the titles, the awards, the accolades. And yet, after you get in your 30s and as we age, you get to the point to where there's not a lot, the receiving doesn't happen more. So if you're stuck in that younger mindset, of course you're not going to be as happy, because to you, it's all me. It needs to come to me. And he says the way to interrupt that smile curve is to realize that it's not all happiness is not how much people give me. Happiness is how much I give away. And that if this was the one-liner that really sticks it for me. He says, if I die and the world owes me, I win. If I've given out more than anything the world, meaning spouse, relationship, friends, family, job, career, things, if I have net lost my revenue, then I win. If I die and the world owes me, I win. This is not karma. This is not there. And having that mentality in that gap, it's almost like, if I'm understanding that, and I need to go find that book, basically, I guess is what I'm saying. Because if I'm understanding that application, it's intentionally from the bottom up trying to decrease that gap and not expecting the top of the gap, the opposite end of the gap, to come back and meet you.
Correct. You nailed it. And I love it. What else can I say about that? You nailed it. And here's the other thing that you made me think of that I talk about a lot. And that is, you can tell people at the end of their life who have had happiness, because that at that point, they've already been through everything. And the way that they look at the world is the way that they look at the world. Some people are miserable, absolutely miserable.
Oh,
and
yeah.
what I find is they're really at the extremes of either. So they're either really, really happy and they're enjoying right off into the sunset, or they are just not. And I think it's part of that. It's that, appreciation of the journey. It's owning it too. I say this a lot, people tend to be victims of themselves and the world around them. And there's no power in that. And at the end of your life, if you're looking back and you haven't owned it, that means you couldn't change it. So, wow. Did we just give 19,000 pieces of advice on this thing? I need to go back and listen to it.
Something like that. And I'm like trying to work of, here we are in the Multifamily Media Network. This has to focus on multifamily. So how can we real quick do like the official podcast hosting thing and turn this around to multifamily industry and that? And how does it work? Okay, when you're a maintenance supervisor and you show up on site, how are you looking at your property, at your community? How, when you notice things, are you noticing them as an excuse? Are you noticing them to fix them? How are you doing that? When you look at your financials at the end of we'll make this work somehow. At the end of every month, you have a goal that you're supposed to attain. And if you made or below that goal, that's the gap. What are you going to do to make up that gap next month? How do you solve that? Do you have a solution mentality or not? And that's, are you doing well? There we go. Yeah. Are you doing well?
You're doing good. Sorry. That's not going to be good enough, right?
That's right. That's right. We're not good anymore. It's all about well. And that's a deep subject.
It is a deep subject. I had someone who always said, I'm super. I'm like, wow, okay. Got my attention. Now I have well and super. Thank you.
There was a resident at a community. I still remember her. I can't remember her name, and I should, but she had a little dog that she'd go out and walk every afternoon, and she'd walk past our shop. And you ask her, and she had this accent. I can't remember exactly where it was, but you ask her, how are you doing? And she always had super. It's super. It's just super. It's all super. We're doing super.
Well, we could guess maybe where that's from, but you know what? Let's not.
That's right. That's right.
This was so much fun. We're gonna have to do this again. You're gonna have to come over to my party next time, okay?
And yes, we will. I will do that. We can make that happen. Yes, because this was such a pre-planned interview of massive educational proportions that we followed every single outline in the script. I am so glad that you hit those points properly.
Yeah, me too. Especially on Friday afternoon, because that's what we were going to do today.
Yes, and we may have answered it. Now, I have a tradition whenever I have people on my show, I have a tradition of asking the same question of everybody on there. And it's very possible we've already answered it. And if so, then the challenge is you got to figure out how to explain it different.
Oh, okay.
But here's the question. What mindset do you have that you have discovered has been the key to your success over your career?
I would have to say the mindset that I've discovered over my career that has helped me to be successful is to be vulnerable and to be open. and to do it first.
Oh, wow. That one, it's not often that you hear those two things put together. That is, wow. That is, okay, that's deeper than well.
I think it's deeper myself. Yeah.
But yes, it is. Thank you, Suzanne, for spending this time with me today. And with listeners, you can check out Suzanne's podcast. What day does it drop? Tuesdays. You can check out Suzanne's podcast, Multifamily Elevated, on Tuesdays on the Multifamily Media Network. Thank you all for listening and spending time with us today. Be super, and I'll see you somewhere.
Sounds great. Love this.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Maintenance Mindset. I hope you take away ideas that apply to your current and future career goals. Please check out Maintenance Mindset Minute to hear short-form, high-impact, applicable, maintenance-centered information. Whatever you do today, do it with a maintenance mindset. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. I'll see you somewhere.